Today's video is how to wind the various shuttles for weaving. This is a stick shuttle. It's a short one, but it is a stick shuttle, and they come in all different lengths and widths and edges. This has two straight edges. Sometimes you get a beveled edge if you're going to use it for band weaving. And there are two ways to wind these. One is to go round and round from notch to notch, and the other way is to do a figure eight on the edges. Alright, you need to secure the end. Sometimes you just wrap it, sometimes some people knot it. But going round and round from notch to notch is just this. Round and round. You fill it up with what you think you need. Sometimes it gets really fat in the middle, so it won't fit through your shed if you have a small shed. The other way is, again, to sort of hold it or secure it, and you're going to go a figure eight around the edge. You see the figure eight loading up on one edge. And I always think of it as going on top, end up on top, top, top. Okay, once you fill that side up, you flip it and fill the other side up with the figure eight. You can put a lot more yarn on with this method. Also, if you just fill up one edge, one side, you can use the other side to pack in your weft if you're making bands or narrow things. This is a ski shuttle, and these come in several different styles. This is just one of the styles. Has these hooks or raised areas, and this is for either thick yarn for rugs or strips of fabric ironed in half or not, whatever you decide to do. So the way to do this is, again, just like the stick shuttle, you secure it somehow or hold it and just go round and around if you want. Or you can cross in the middle and do a figure eight. And that helps you load a little bit more yarn on there if you're doing a figure eight. Okay. Here we have various shuttles. We have the end feed shuttle, which uses a pirn. They come in different styles and different lengths. This is the large shocked. This is a damask shuttle, which you have to use a quill, or I use a straw. You can make your own quills with paper, or you can buy cardboard ones. These are boat shuttles. This one has a square opening, or pretty square. This one has rounded openings. So if you have several different kinds of bobbins, the bobbins are interchangeable in these boat shuttles. For your squared off hole, you want to use this type of bobbin with nothing sticking out of the end. It doesn't bind, it rolls nicely when you're weaving. And for the rounded openings, you want to use a bobbin with these extra things on the other side of the flange, because then if the bobbin goes close to the wood, it doesn't bind. If you use this bobbin in a rounded opening, when it touches the wood, it may bind when you're weaving. So to keep it from doing that, on either side of the bobbin you put a nut, just a plain old nut, and that keeps, you need two of them, I only have one here, but that keeps the bobbin from hitting the wood, and it won't bind when you're weaving. So how do you wind bobbins and pirns and quills? You need a winder. You can wind it by hand, you can use a drill, and you can use something like an old hand mixer modified to hold the bobbin. But you can get these are Swedish style. One has a longer shaft than the other one, but they both do the same thing. You attach it to the table, and then you load your bobbin and you turn this thing. This one is kind of quiet. This one's pretty noisy. They have gears inside. You can get other kinds that are run with belts, and you can get some with exposed gears. I like the covered gears. These are Leclerc. They don't get as much fiber inside the gears as the exposed gears do. But your bobbins and pirns just fit on the end. They all have a clamp it to the table. And you have to kind of push the bobbin on just so it stays. Sometimes they do fly off, but you just put it back on. Here's an electric winder, and this has a foot pedal like a sewing machine. This is actually a sewing machine motor type thing with, again, another shaft on it that you put your bobbin or pirn or whatever on, and you regulate the speed with your foot on this thing. And it plugs in the wall, of course. There are different styles of these, really expensive ones that have yardage counters, things to hold the bobbin in place, double bobbin winders. They have tensioners, all kinds of things you can get, but just a basic one is really all you need. There are certain ways to wind a bobbin, and what you do with this kind is build up the edges first and then fill in the middle. You don't want to go past the plane. If you did a straight line, you don't want to go past the plane of the flanges, because then it will stick in your shuttle. So just wind this, and you want to wind it on with tension so that it doesn't sink. You want to wind on with tension. Okay. Build up the one, run across to the other side, build up the other side. Okay, you see how I got the two edges are wound up? The two edges are built up. Oop, there it goes, falling off. And now I'm going to fill in the center. And I have tension on it so that if you press on it, it's not going to sink in. It's not spongy. It's nice and hard. One thing about winding tension. Okay, one thing about winding with tension, you don't want to leave the yarn on the bobbin for years, because it will lose its elasticity and its shape. Okay. This is a well-wound pirn. You build your yarn up at the wider end to about where it needs to be, and then you build half an inch at a time. But you want to make sure it doesn't get too fat to not fit in your shuttle. Okay. So you wrap it to get it started, and then there you go. You never want to go right to the very edge, because it will fall off, and then that's not good. And you don't want to go so fast, because it's under tension. If you go too fast, you'll burn your hands, because it does get hot. So wind a little bump about what I think it needs, and going back and forth over about an inch or half an inch, 3/4 of an inch. So I want to build it up each time to that. And I go a little bit beyond, and then I fill in this little indentation here. A little bit beyond. Fill in the indentation. Always with tension. Okay, you don't want it to get all sloppy in here, especially towards the end, because that will come off the end as you're weaving and get stuck in the tensioning device on your shuttle. And you never really want to go all the way to the end. there are notches on here, and I usually leave one notch empty and just kind of round off the end here. Again, if you get it too sloppy here, it'll come off the end and be uncomfortable. Okay, winding a quill is a little bit different. You don't want to fill up. There's nothing here to stop the yarn from coming off of it, so you don't want to go too close to the edge, and you don't want to fill up a bump and then fill in the center. You want to go back and forth kind of evenly until it fills up to what you want. Now the opening on the damask shuttle is kind of narrow, so you don't want to put too much on there. Again, you kind of start it. You might want to use tape or something too if you need to. Sometimes I have to tape the quill to the shaft because it comes off too easily. Okay, but you want to go back and forth. Oops, got a little too close to the edge. Filling up what you need. So it's kind of making a little X across there. It's going back and forth. And as you're winding, you can always hold up your shuttle just to see that it's not getting too fat. The electric winder is faster than anything. The gear ratio makes these pretty fast to wind things, but you're still using your hand, and it's a little tedious. And when you clamp this to the table, you have to make sure that this thing doesn't hit your table and that it doesn't turn and things like that. And they're pretty expensive for what they are. Alright, that is shuttle and bobbin winding.